As we continue through the month of March and Women's History Month, we want to turn now to April Reed Cruz with the Reed Financial Group with some tips on how to build financial confidence. April, thank you for your time. Can you hear us okay?
I can, yes, thank you.
Well, let's talk about this right off the start here. What kinds of barriers to financial confidence or challenges in financial issues do women sometimes face?
Well, first, I'd like to acknowledge how far we've come in a relatively short period of time because sometimes it's easy to forget that perspective. Women had to have a male co signer on loans until the middle of the 1970s. So we have certainly come a very long way in a relatively short period of time. But some of those barriers that still exist are that often the finances are delegated to the male in the household. It's just the gender role assignments in the household that go back decades. Women often have the motherhood penalty, as it's called, where you perhaps take time out of the workforce to take care of young children, or maybe you're moving back to part time instead of full time work. They're often also more likely to be caregivers for elderly parents. So that can be additional time out of the workforce. And some of these could be considered factors that contribute to the gender pay gap that still exists today as well.
To somebody who maybe is listening to that answer and they're nodding their heads along, thinking, hey, that applies to me, what would you say to them? What advice would you give?
It really starts with education because if we look at from a financial literacy perspective, women do still lag behind financial literacy. There are a lot of studies that prove this. So starting to spend some time, you can choose your topic, whatever is maybe the biggest concern to you, the area that you feel like you can tackle the easiest, whatever method works best for you. But start somewhere. Start listening to perhaps some podcasts. Maybe there's a YouTube channel. Read Financial Group puts YouTube videos out all the time. We try to keep those very brief, to the point, relevant topics so that you can break this down into a digestible format and really start to build your knowledge. And from there, really start to become a part of your finances. Whether you're married or whether you're single, be accountable to yourself and assess where you are. Because if we're not looking very carefully at what we're spending, where we're contributing, and what our goals are, measurable and specific goals are for the future, it's very difficult to achieve our goals.
You mentioned the first step is getting a little more educated, finding some resources, finding some places to gather new information. You referenced some podcasts, some YouTube elements. I know Reed Financial has a YouTube page you just pointed out. What other sources of information out there? Because you and I both know if I go to Google, if I go to TikTok search, if I go anywhere on the internet and search financial advice, I'm going to find no shortage of advice, but a pretty wide spectrum of the quality of that advice. So where can someone go to find good financially sound advice, particularly for maybe beginners?
I really like to look at books that have become bestsellers. I think that's a really good starting point if you're not familiar with podcasts or YouTube channels and maybe you're looking to dive a bit deeper. I was a contributor recently to Financial Trendsetters 3. It's the third of its iteration, really empowering women and looking holistically at how women can view and be an active participant in their finances. That's a great resource. Look up other publications that have bestseller status. And ratings of advisors. If you're looking for a financial advisor, make sure that you look for good, strong reviews, and broker checks are another area where you can really make sure that you're working with someone who is a fiduciary, somebody who has a clean track record, and someone who isn't a jack of all trades and isn't a true expert.
And April, part of this too, you pointed out, is sometimes the situation at home where gender roles contribute, and sometimes the male at home is the one kind of in charge of the money situation. For someone who's watching along and is in that situation and they want to change that up, what advice would you give to women to start to have that conversation?
We encourage our clients who are married, and especially where the male has handled the finances, to just start attending meetings. Even if you're not comfortable yet with asking questions or being an active participant, you can really start to learn a lot when you attend that type of meeting. Start having household meetings on a scheduled basis where you look at your finances together, know what your emergency reserves are, know how to log into all of your accounts, understand what you're contributing and what those financial goals are, and really make sure that you're in frequent communication about that, because heaven forbid something happens to the spouse who is handling the finances, it will be a lot more stressful to try to navigate all of those moving parts if you haven't been at least somewhat of an active participant prior.
All right, April Reed Cruz with Reed Financial Group. April, thank you for your perspective and your time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.